presentation, or as Christopher do the presentation, you have questions, just type it in that Q&A section, and I will read it out to Christopher as I see the questions comes in, and then if there's a break in between, we might be able to ask those questions. So the agenda is about 45, 50 minutes of presentation, and then about 10 minutes of Q&A. And in the meantime, Debbie is going to pick 3 gift cards, the $50 gift card to Amazon. So look for your name to pop up on the Q&A section, and good luck to everybody. Thanks again for attending the October National. And with that, I will turn it over to Christopher, and he can give a introduction of his presentation. And thanks, Christopher, for agreeing to do this month National.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity. Good morning, everybody. In true 2020 fashion, we're having a challenge with getting the PowerPoint to show up on the screen. So on one screen, you're seeing I have a PDF of the presentation, and then I'm toggling back and forth to the PowerPoint with my notes on it to keep up with the screen. So apologies in advance if there's a delay. So Workspaceology, optimizing the 21st century workspace. It's my pleasure to present this today. This is a presentation that was developed by ESI Ergonomics. This is a presentation that they do for the architecture and design community as a continuing education unit. Later in the presentation, there will be some questions to ask you as you rate your own workspace. So you will want a pen and paper later on to write some notes on to figure out what that number is for your workspace. And of course, if anybody would like a copy of the presentation, I'm happy to send it out afterwards. So first off, again, on behalf of Contract Furnishings and ESI, we're grateful for this opportunity today. This is a picture of the Contract Furnishings team. You're probably familiar with Daniel Craig and Bethany Crack, who are both active members of IFBA and a number of different committees. They're on the call as well today. A little bit about Contract Furnishings. We design and program offices and specify and install commercial furniture. From a personal experience, I have a technical certification in ergonomics, and companies hire me to come in to do Ergo 101s with their team and assess issues within their workspace. So ergonomics is really important to me as a business owner, and being so involved in the commercial furniture industry. I thought, how can we sell product if we don't know how to use it within the workplace? So this has been really important for us. There are 4 learning objectives. 4 learning objectives for this presentation. Learning objective number 1, examine current US workplace trends and identify the elements impacting the ways people work differently today. A caveat to the use of the word today. This presentation was developed by ESI at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, pre-COVID. So there are a couple of qualifiers, and I'll point those out as we go through the presentation and see what feedback or any questions you all might have relative to how you are working differently, because some of the companies on this call, maybe all of your team is back in the office or sporadically. Others may not have been in the office since last March. Learning objective number 2 is discuss how to properly assess a work environment to improve productivity and well-being. 3rd, identify proper ergonomic solutions to help mitigate the risks associated with poor work tools and posture. And finally, explore how to infuse movement and variety into the workspace, maximizing health benefits to employees and employers alike. So those are our objectives today. And this is an interesting one, depending on if you're working from home and always feeling like you're on. Americans spend an average of 8.4 hours at work per day. And in 2020, this is the first generation where we have a total of 5 generations working side by side in the workforce. And what I think is really interesting about this, everyone has different needs and have different approaches to communicating. And of course, we see this a lot in designing offices. To one person, it might be a conference room. To another room, it's a collaboration area, but it's, it's still a table and chairs. The whole different needs. I think this is interesting with the write me generation, the call me generation. I'm fair and squarely the email me generation, text me and chat me. One of the important things about this, when you look generationally, more than 1 in 3 American labor force participants, that 35%, are millennials, making them the largest generation in the US labor force, according to a Pew Research Center analysis. So what does that mean for the future of work? Millennials are making impact. Next slide. An article in Inc. magazine talks about something many of us are hearing. For millennials, it's more about work-life balance than meaningful work or job progression. It's a complete mind shift from past generations. Now that work is a space and not a place, people are redefining where, when, and how they want to work. Today, 42% of employees feel obligated to check in with work while on vacation, according to Randstad's employee engagement study. The study also found that millennials were the generation most inclined to remain on during off hours. This is due to their always-on approach to life. Millennials see no problem with blending work and life. Checking email before you get out of bed in the morning, then shopping online while at work, exchanging texts with their managers at 8 p.m., and then catching up on email on a Sunday afternoon is native to them. It's how they work. So how will Workspaceology need to change to embrace the wants, needs, and norms of these future generations, some of whom want to spend as much time as possible working off hours from remote locations? I think you can all probably really identify with that right now in COVID with people working remotely. So another dramatic shift outside of the changes being brought about by generational evolution is the fact that companies are doing more with less. Less space, fewer employees, smaller budgets, less time. Another dramatic shift outside of the changes being brought about by generational evolution is the fact that companies, I already read that, are doing more with less. The less space, fewer employees, smaller budgets, less time. So how is this affecting the workforce? Well, they're working longer hours, sitting longer, not exercising, poor posture, and nutrition. So what is Workspaceology? Workspaceology is the study of workspace design, form, and function, which is why we're all here today. It's used to improve employee well-being and productivity. With multiple generations in the workforce, employees have diverse needs, and a customizable workspace offers flexibility and personal choice that employees require to thrive. Enhancing your understanding of Workspaceology will give you the tools to optimize your workspace. So Workspaceology will teach you the critical elements of your workspace, how to assess, identify, and improve them. Let's discuss some of the current workplace trends. Cloud computing. More and more people are working in the cloud. I'm sure many of you, like my company, went from little cloud computing to 100% cloud computing with COVID. So this is even more prominent with the pandemic. This slide is from a survey done in 2018. RightScale surveyed nearly 1,000 IT professionals about their adoption of cloud infrastructure and found that 96% of the businesses surveyed are now utilizing the cloud. It's projected to grow by 17.3% in 2019. And we'll see the data is still out for 2020 to see how much more it has increased in 2020. So cloud computing, mobility, we also all get that. Mobile devices will soon outnumber PCs. Considering all data stored in the cloud and the rise of the remote workforce, workers need an easy way to access it anytime, anywhere. Again, something that's become really obvious through COVID. Now, one of the things that is a very interesting study by Boston Consulting Group is how important our phones have become to us. So they did a survey and asked, what would consumers give up instead of their smartphones? This slide is funny. 30% would stop seeing their friends in person. 33% would rather give up sex for a year than give up their phone. 45% would put off going on vacation. 46% of the respondents said they would be willing to give up a day off per week. And greater than 55% would rather forego dining out for a year. Unfortunately, I think the latter group is going to get their wish with COVID right now, but it's very evident everybody wants their phone, they love their phone, they can't live without their phone. So what are the other factors? Workstations are changing within a workspace. Workstations are getting smaller and smaller. As you can see here in 2010, the average square feet per office was 225. 2017 is expected to be 151. The main reason for the declines is the increase in collaborative and team-oriented space, as well as continuing economic uncertainty and cost containment. Collaborative spaces. More and more companies are wanting collaborative spaces. Today, approximately 80% of employees work in an open office environment, but our open offices, all they're cracked up to be. One of the things that we've really seen being in this industry is when we started 20 years ago, we saw, mostly everyone in private offices, and then the pendulum swing to everybody open and collaborative. And now it feels like it's come back nice and fair and square in the middle with a combination of private offices and open collaborative plan. But I think what we will see is, with COVID, we're already seeing the trend more towards the private offices, again, spaces where people can close the door. One new study done in addition to this collaborative spaces, because people asked if they're cracked up to be, a study done by Harvard researchers looked at 2 Fortune 500 companies planning to make a switch to open plan offices and compared how employees interact both before and after the new office design. What do they find? Well, after making the switch to open office floor plans, face-to-face interaction time dropped by about 70%. The use of email increased between 22 and 56% respectively, and productivity slipped. So ironically, people are more visible to each other, but they're less engaged and they're less collaborative, which is a trend of the open and collaboration spaces, open and collaborative spaces. Another trend within workspaces, as we look at the size and the space of them, is monitors. As the workstations are getting smaller, monitor sizes keep getting larger and larger. We've even seen this trend with cell phone, like Apple's iPhone 12 Plus. And in fact, an article by Digital Trends showcased the best monitors, and the highest rated monitor from Samsung reports out at 34 inches and features a curved screen. And what's more, one monitor, unless it's that monitor, unless it's this one, I suppose, doesn't typically cut it for people anymore. Those of you who design workspaces are probably asking people how many monitors they have on their desks. It's probably common to hear the answer is 2 to 3. And research shows that people with multiple computer screens can be 10% more productive with 33% fewer errors than those with only one monitor. So perhaps that's a good thing, but as screen sizes increase and the number of monitors typically equals more than one, there's a lot of stuff to work around at a desk. Another growing trend is workplace wellness. More and more people are concerned with health and well-being, not just in their personal lives, but at work too. 86% of the organizations surveyed believe well-being influences engagement most or all of the time. And people who report high levels of well-being have a lower turnover rate by about 35%. So in such a competitive work environment, having that, that workplace wellness is important for retention. Just 1 second. Workplace trends. This is the fun of toggling back and forth between two screens. So thank you for your patience with us. So while these aren't all of the trends impacting the workplace today, they are some of the ones that relate most to what our workspace needs to do to help us change and adapt with the times. And you see, I mean, this is what I just reviewed, the constantly changing technology, mobility, smaller workstations, more collaborative spaces, larger monitors, more emphasis on wellness. So what does this mean? So how do we incorporate all these things, these changing trends and needs of the workplace? We're at a crossroads between technology, wellness, and design. And the next pieces of the presentation will go through bridging that gap. How do we bridge the gap between design, technology, and wellness, or the gap between how people work and the tools they have to work with? That gets us into our second learning objective. For our second learning objective, let's look at how to bridge the gap by looking at ways we can assess work environments to improve productivity and well-being. Workspaceology, the study of workspace design, form, and function, is a tool that you can use to help bridge the gap, improve job satisfaction, increase innovation and efficiency, eliminate tension, discomfort, and pain, enhance overall physical health and well-being, reduce fatigue, and improve staying power. First thing we have to acknowledge is that we're all different. All of our bodies are different, shapes and sizes. We all have different needs. We all work differently. What's comfortable for one person may not be comfortable for another person. So some of the main factors to consider when assessing work environments: purpose of the workspace, tasks performed in the workspace, flexible, customizable work tools, setting size of individual workspace, time spent sitting versus standing, access to nature or the outdoors, aesthetics, noise level, desired or perceived privacy needs. So why productivity matters? I mean, Sierra Conlon is a leadership coach specializing in productivity and high performance habit creation. She's an international speaker and an author of several books on productivity and personal development, and is passionate about unlocking human potential. She wrote an article about 11 reasons why productivity should be on your business agenda. And here are all the reasons she cites. I think it's interesting that outside of some of the ones we'd expect, productivity helps to reduce burnout and improve morale, enhance well-being, and increase engagement. Employees are trying to ask people to work harder, but is the end result actually better for them? The key to productivity isn't just working harder, it's finding ways to work smarter. Better time management, becoming more organizing, streamlining processes, improving communication. They make employees less stressed, not more. And that leads to more than just productivity. Conlon states that when you're more in control of your workload, you can be more in control of your life, having time to include exercise, to cook healthy food, and rest when you need to relax. With less stress, you can listen to your body and give it more of what it needs. All the good things in life are within reach. All it takes is a few little changes and you'll see them all add up to stunning results. So earlier I talked about having just a piece of paper and a little notes, pen and paper to kind of take this short quiz. There are 2 of them. And there's a scale at the end to talk about, different ways to improve your space. So these factors, so if you take out your pen and paper, I'll give everyone a few minutes. So improved productivity. These factors can have an impact on your productivity in the workspace. Evaluate your current workstation and rate the following on a scale of 1 to 5. Then add your ratings to determine your productivity score. Now, I know many of you are working from home, so you have to figure out what you have the most ability to change, your office environment that you'll be going back to or your own home environment. So on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being unsatisfactory, 5 exceptional, I want you to write down these numbers and come up with a total at the end of it. How many of you have access to multiple monitors? You have sufficient desk space, ability to control distractions, ability to control noise level, access to privacy, and ability to sit stand. So just kind of take a note and rate those. Okay. So now that we've looked at productivity, let's take a look at well-being and why a holistic view on employees' well-being matters so much at work. Let's be honest, there's some skepticism in the field about whether or not these types of programs work. Many studies have evaluated the ability of well-being programs to improve healthy behaviors. Not every well-being program is able to show positive results. The ones that are well organized and follow effective behavior change models show the best results. It's all about behavior change. An article written by Dr. Steve Aldana, who's the CEO of WellSteps. He's a professor and author of 7 books and more than 75 research articles on the impact of worksite wellness programs, sums it up like this. Healthy behaviors lead to lower health risks, and lower health risks lead to less chronic disease. With less chronic disease, employees have fewer healthcare costs, and it looks like this. So next piece for the quiz, get your pen and paper again. Improve well-being. I want you to rate yourself on these questions here. These factors can have an impact on your well-being in the workplace. Evaluate your current workstation and rate the following on a scale of 1 to 5, and add your ratings to determine your well-being score. Important factors are access to natural light, adjustable furniture, ability to alleviate pain, ability to sit stand, access to outdoors, and decor. So that office environment. So score these for me, please. I'll give you guys a second. So once you've had an opportunity to add those numbers up, what does your Workspaceology score mean? So if you're somewhere between a 6 to a 14, your workspace needs some improvements. 15 to 22, your workspace can be enhanced. And 23 to 30, I mean, your workspace is a positive influence, which is critical for quality of life. Next, we're going to go to learning objective 3. Identify proper ergonomic solutions to help mitigate the risks associated with poor work tools and posture. So these are, being an ergonomist and going in and doing evaluations, I always like to go in and see how somebody is sitting at their desk or working without them knowing I'm looking. Because of course, everyone is always on their best behavior when I show up to do an evaluation. Or they're always on their best behavior when they know I'm watching. Most of the time though, when I walk up, this is what I see. And so what I'm going to do is, there's a couple of slides. I've got 5 slides, and what they show is, I wasn't sure if we'd be able to do a interactive and have you all shout out or share what the issues are for each one of these slide presentations. So what I've got is, I've got some pictures of some different work environments. I'm going to share just some of the things that I'm seeing in them. Maybe you can see those same issues within yourself or other people within your office, but it's things that I look at when I'm going out to do an ergonomic evaluation and a review with somebody. So, identifying problems. Before we talk about how to do things right, let's take a few minutes to talk about some of the things that can happen when bad habits, whether self-imposed or employer-imposed, are upon us. What's wrong with this picture? So as I look at this picture, you notice she's sitting forward on her chair. We call that perching. So you've got a great ergonomic chair, sit back in the chair, let it support your core. But when you sit on the front of it, you're perching. I see crossed legs, so gets the hips out of alignment. Monitor distance. Big issue with the flatter screens is people are pushing them further away from them, which is probably what's causing her to perch, because she can't see the screen. And the second is working on the surface. You'll notice that her from the elbow to her fingertips, she's sitting on the surface with the keyboard out in front of her. Next one, identify problems. The phone head creates challenges and issues with the neck. Monitor height, you notice he's looking down at his monitor. You notice that wrist is on a hard edge. That wrist is so narrow for the blood flow and the nerves to flow through there, and it's resting on that hard edge. And you notice his shoulders are raised because he's working up on top of that surface as well. There's some notes on that position. Something to keep in mind is, those of you that are working at home at the dining room table or the kitchen counter, how your shoulders and wrists and what your position is. Next screen, identify the problems. This office. You can see there are multiple monitors, looks like multiple computers, multiple keyboards. Very cluttered space, different sizes. I don't know if this person takes that keyboard under the bigger monitor and pulls out. You see that there's a keyboard tray under the desk, but it doesn't look like they're using anything to improve their workspace. It's a pretty cluttered space. Only 2 more. This one, identify problems, multiple screens. Now, at face value, the 3 screens lined up like that is a great position, but you notice that her keyboard is turned at an angle, and she has to shift at an angle to be able to work, which is not a good ergonomic position. You notice that right arm is up on that surface. But then you also notice the 4th monitor over to the right, which is really in an odd position. The other thing, I don't see her sitting back in her chair. So again, seeing her work on the surface, she's perching, she's not sitting back in her chair. It's another one that jumps out at me. Next one. This one, posture. So posture. The other thing I'm seeing is seat height. That chair is way too high. You can see the angle in her legs. Her knees should be at a 90 degree. That one is an important one, that seat height. But most standard surfaces are at a height of 29 to 30 inches high. So people bring the seat up higher just because they're just trying to line up with their keyboard and their monitors. And you're looking at that monitor, how far that monitor is away from her, and the angle of the monitor. That's another something else that I would review. And when I go in to do an evaluation, we take a look at, first I take a look at the seat, I take a look at the surface, and take a look at the monitor. And now with so many offices having sit stands within the office, typically we will address we can adjust the surface to the seat after we get the seat in a good position. Other times, if the surface is fixed, we adjust the seat accordingly and bring in a footstool or something to bring those feet up and those knees at a 90. So what do you do to counteract all the wrong things that I just pointed out? Your workspace has so much more of a bigger impact on your well-being and productivity than you think. These get pretty technical, which is why I'm happy at the end it has all the contact information I'll share. I'll be happy to share all of these slides for you to share with your teams, but I will go through with them. So one, positioning the monitor. You notice that monitor is brought closer. Monitor should be 18 to 30 inches away and your eyes should be at the top 2/3 of the screen. You know, remember from that first picture, that monitor was way to the back of the surface and the person wasn't sitting back in the chair. Well, we want to get you sitting back in the chair and pull that monitor closer. If controlling noise or other distractions in employment, providing access to private space will promote higher productivity levels, giving that heads down workspace, knowing that's available. Using an adjustable keyboard platform that helps keep your wrists flat and straight, which can reduce discomfort. This as well, most of the keyboards out there have a gel pad at the edge of them. One of the comments I referenced was the gentleman who was resting his wrist on the surface. This helps to reduce that impact and actually gets that support at the palm of your hand, not at your wrist. Lighting is critical, and it's important. LED lights seem to work better than traditional lights and it's more natural to more similar to natural light. It just helps reduce your eye strain within the space. Taking a look at that task light, and it's critical to incorporate both sitting and standing work time into your day. Use a sit-stand workstation can help reduce the risk of health issues caused by sitting too much. In the absence of a sit-stand, I talk with clients about, are they getting up to go to the printer or go to meet with people or walk through their facility? What other ways are you moving? Try to tell people not to beat themselves up. Think about the other ways you're moving and incorporating movement into your space. Final and last two items, supporting your feet with a footrest. Typically with a sit-stand unit, no, not typically. With a sit-stand unit and an ergonomic task chair, there's no need for a footrest. You can get that surface down for your feet and your knees and your hips to be in a great neutral position to work in. And the final one is a natural light throughout the day. I talked about having the opportunity for a task light, additional light. Nothing beats natural light. Some of the things I'd point out so we're just in that first slide, we're reviewing things all associated with the surface and the environment. This one, it's about your position in your chair, your head upright, straight, facing forward. You notice that the shoulders are relaxed, your elbows are at a 90-degree angle and your wrists are in a neutral position. Knees are at a 90-degree angle, feet are flat on the ground. Again, with this being a sit to stand, you would be able to lower that and have your feet on the ground. What I find is if you're able to have your feet on the ground, it feels, you feel more grounded, you feel more supported. And what that does is it helps to get your hips in a more neutral position when your knees are at that 90-degree angle. The other thing that's really important about this is making sure you've got that lumbar support with the chair and you're adjusting that seat slide to get that leg support in that chair. Most seating is designed for 85 to 90% of the population. So a good task chair, you can modify it and adjust it to, the differences in the size of your team members. And then there are some specialty products for the larger. I'm 6'6". I still manage to fit in your normal task chair. But there are a lot of projects out there for more petite individuals and those larger. And then of course, there's also bariatric seating for those needing a sturdier chair. The guidelines for standing, and this one's interesting. When I first started doing ergonomic evaluations, it was all wrists, elbows, shoulders, lower back. Well, now it's hips, knees, ankles, fallen arches, shin splints. It's really interesting how it's shifted quite a bit. From the waist up though, it's basically, it's all the same position. It's your elbows are at a 90, your wrists are in a neutral position, head straight ahead. Again, that 18 to 30 inches for your monitor, and your eyes at the top 2/3 of the screen. Feet slightly forward with your knees bent, and then resting flat on the floor. One of the things with the sit to stand is most sit to stands have a range of 24 inches high all the way up to 48 inches high. So you can hit ADA level to standing height level. That's an important thing to take into consideration. Some of the sit stands don't go low enough for people. So you want to take a look at that well, there's an opportunity there to try and fit the next employee as well. So we've gone over some of the guidelines. This brings us to learning objective number 4. We're going to explore how to infuse movement and variety into the workspace, maximizing the health benefits to employees and employers alike. So the dangers of sitting. Here, sitting is the new smoking. Sitting is associated with an increased risk of diabetes, heart disease, and death. Sitting strikes approximately 92,000 people each year with avoidable cancer. If you sit for a living, your risk of developing cardiovascular disease is twice that of someone who stands on the job. Sitting 6+ hours a day makes up to 40% more likely to die within 15 years than someone who sits fewer than 3 hours a day, even if you exercise. So like I said, sitting is the new smoking. When we sit, electrical activity in the legs shut down enzymes that help break down fat by 90%, and calorie burning drops to 1 per minute. Big factor. Additional dangers of sitting. Sitting causes good cholesterol levels to drop after 2 hours. Researchers have linked sedentary behavior to increased risk of several forms of cancer and blood clots, which can cause strokes and heart attacks, among other health problems. Sitting causes the risk of diabetes to increase 24%. And one study found that sitting for less than 3 hours a day could increase life expectancy by 2 years. And there's as a part of this presentation that ESI Ergonomics put together, and as a part of the slides, they have links to all of the research and studies that support all of this. And again, I'm happy to share that with everybody. So sit less, move more. Stand rather than sit whenever you have the chance. Stand while talking on the phone or eating lunch. Try a standing desk. Think about ways to walk while you work. Walk laps with your colleagues rather than gathering in a conference room for a meeting. And moving more will burn more calories, which may lead to weight loss and increased energy. How to sit stand correctly. And I know you think, how could I get this wrong? But studies have found that people whose jobs require them to stand all day, bank tellers, assembly line workers, have stronger associations with health issues like lower back pain. So while you certainly shouldn't sit all day, standing all day isn't the easy answer either. Let's talk about how to do it correctly. And this is an interesting one because I think as Americans, more is better. And we'll go from a client who's done nothing but sit to stand, and they just think they have so many more challenges and issues because they've done that and their body's not used to it. So alternate between sitting and standing. While the research is still in its early stages, researchers find that a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 ratio of sitting versus standing is being shown to optimize comfort and energy without affecting productivity. In theory, this would mean that for every 1 to 2 hours you sit, get up and stand for the next hour. The science shows we need more regular breaks in between both functions, so it's best to try switching positions every 30 to 60 minutes. Adjust your desk and screen and set your standing desk at elbow height with your elbows in a 90-degree angle to the floor. Keep your screen 20 to 28 inches from your face. I try to, when I'm talking to people, I usually say arm's length for most people. Try to have the top of your computer screen at eye level to avoid having to tilt the neck up and down for long periods of time. This also has a factor in your chair. What I find is if the monitors are too low or too high, people have a tendency to rock forward and back in their chair to see the screens. It's indicative that the screen is too far away, but you're also reducing and diminishing the support of the chair because you're adding this extra rocking. So the chair can't support you the way it needs to. If you're using a laptop, try to keep the keyboard aligned with your elbow height. If you're using a large monitor, use a keyboard tray. Your mom was right when she said not to sit too close to the TV. So we want to make sure that you've got the right distance in there. Make sure your keyboard and mouse are level and allow your wrist to stay straight when typing. If needed, purchase an adjustable keyboard tray to help. Use arm supports or wrist supports if needed. Anti-fatigue mats, people ask me about these all the time. If you're working on a hard surface and standing for a long period of time on a concrete or hardwood floor, absolutely, the anti-fatigue mats are a great option for that. And especially working at home, I found at home, I have to make sure that I put on a good pair of sneakers when I'm standing in my computer on the hardwood floors. If you're in a typical corporate office with a carpeted floor, that typically is enough with a good pair of shoes to give you support in a standing position. I've had more instances of the anti-fatigue mat causing issues because people are tripping over them as they're transitioning from their chair to the anti-fatigue mat. So really just take a look at making sure the shoes you're wearing, what you're standing on. And the most important, take breaks. There's a lot of software out there and reminder apps that help you to get up and moving. I don't know what I would do without my Fitbit. It's a great way. It's something that tells me 10 minutes before the hour if I didn't get my steps in to get up and get moving around the office. So according to Joan Vernikos, author of Sitting Kills, Moving Heals, we need to stand up often to get the sit-stand benefits. Like we just said, it's not enough to sit for 2 hours and then stand for an hour. While that is better than sitting all day, it still keeps us in the same position for an extended period of time, and our bodies get used to being still, regardless of whether or not they're standing or sitting. Instead, it's about moving more and varying how often we move. Why? Because every time we stand, the body initiates a shift in fluids, volume, and hormones and causes muscle contractions to occur. And almost every nerve in the body is stimulated. So the more times we shift sitting and standing, the more times our body responds by stimulating all the nerves and muscles in our body, keeping things moving versus stagnant. So take breaks. Use a software reminder app that helps you remember to get up and move. And like I said, I don't know what I would do without my Fitbit. Your next position is your best position. Encourage movement, get up. Final thoughts. We've given you the tools to assess and identify. Now it's up to you to improve your workspace well-being. and food for thought. I love the idea that it's not about doing everything right. When I go in and do an ergonomic eval, it's not about shaming or blaming. It's, you know, getting you back to an ergonomically neutral position when you're feeling discomfort. It's about little improvements every day. The idea of make your next choice your best choice, it's not about being perfect. Climb the stairs, then eat a cookie. It's okay. We're human, just don't eat 10 cookies. It's not about doing it all right. It's just about taking it one choice or step at a time and using lots of small improvements to form new habits that are long lasting. Quick review. So then when you get this emailed, you know where to go. Quick review. Let's quickly review the learning objectives we covered today. We talked about trends impacting the ways people work differently. Discussed how we can properly assess the work environment to help improve productivity and wellness. Looked at ways to change poor posture with ergonomic guidelines to make the proper changes. And talked about how to stand correctly using movements and variety to help people stay healthy and engaged. Now, do we have any questions? I'm not seeing any questions. Have any questions come in? Wanting to show you our sources. So esiergo.com, continuing education. This has a list of all of the sources that we included today, and will be included in the slide. If any of the particular people that I referenced, you can look at the studies and look at the science behind the presentation. On behalf of, oh, I do see a question. Okay, great question. Well, when you do a review, do you visit every single workstation? So this is what's interesting. What typically happens is, depends on the size of the company. What happens is when I find an employer sends out an email to the team about doing an ergonomic review, there inevitably will be people that say, I'm too busy, I don't have time for this, I don't want to do this. So what I typically encourage, if it's not a one-off interaction, is calling together a team meeting and doing an Ergo 101 high-level review. What ends up happening from that is somebody always comes up that said no to begin with and says, hey, will you take a look at my chair? Hey, will you take a look at my desk? So I suggest offering it as broadly as you can, creating that Ergo 101 quick briefing, and then letting people self-select getting an assessment. And typically, when I do one of these, we typically plan, just 10 to 15 minutes with each person. It's not a lot of time, just to kind of point out some things. But if there's somebody that has a really a bigger issue, we can work more one-on-one and meet with them, address it, document what changes have been made, what we saw originally within the workspace. So great question. But I let the person kind of to drive their interest in this and not force it when I do the Ergo 101. So let me see if there are any other questions. Let me see. How are you assessing work from home spaces? Great question. I'm actually going to people's homes. So there's a bit of trust there. I wear a mask. Companies will have me go to the employee's home to see how they're working or address what issues they have. Companies are having employees come to the office to get their task chair or their sit-to-stand desk, taking it home to work from it. That's another way that kind of working in combination. If we know that the dining room chair isn't working, let them take their chair home. Or even right now, we're working with a lot of companies that employees are coming in out of the office. They want to leave things static there. Some companies are giving their employees a budget to go buy an ergonomic task chair, and they're coming here to our office or showroom to test out the different options and see what fits best for them. And then if there's a follow-up that's needed at home, I'm going into people's homes to do the evaluations, wearing a mask, washing the hands, following typical safety protocols for that. So home options, it's still happening. Let's see if there's any other questions. Anything else? Okay. Well, it's really been a pleasure to have the opportunity to go over all this information and data and share it with you. On behalf of Contract Furnishings and ESI Ergonomics, who just are an amazing partner for ergonomic product for us. Thank you for the opportunity. Again, this is our team. You have my email address, you have Daniel's, you have Bethany's email address, a link to our website. Please, if I'm happy to send out this presentation to everybody and share it with you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. If you'll remember, I'm the Gen X in the presentation, so I'm the email me guy. So thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Christopher, for a great presentation. And on behalf of IFMA Demo Chapter, thank you. And thank you for all the attendees. Please do sign up for our next Knosh for November. It's have already been posted, so please do sign up. And again, thank you for attending, and thank you for presenting. And with that, everybody have a good afternoon and a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for attending.